looking back and forth, Granger or Jesperson. I wonder which would be less likely to fail me in this class. Deciding, my steps began over to Granger. A growl formed in my throat as Zabini sat down next to her, stealing the empty stool next to her.
Well, there goes a passing grade.
As good as I am in my other classes, I have this thing against the body. It was fleshy and bony and something I particularly didn't want to learn about with a bunch of Gryffindor girls. Why couldn't it have been a mathematics or geography class? Sighing, I glare over at Jesperson. She was sitting with her head on the table as if it pained her to be in the class. It pained me to admit we had that in common. I trudge over and pulled the stool out from under the two-seating table. It squeaked against the wooden floor, causing Jesperson to look up.
Oh.
I knew she could tell it was me before she even saw me. The way her body shifted away from my presence said so. It was just how I came off. Instantly, my presence is known. The presence of a Malfoy radiates hatred. It was just something I came to terms with a long time ago. It was good for enemies, such as Potter and Weasley, but when I was just coming to class to actually learn, it sucked major balls. A look of shock and then anger flashed through her eyes. Just when she was about to switch desks, I pointed out,
There's nowhere to run, Mudblood.
She looked at me shocked, probably at how calm I sounded. Looking about, she too saw that every desk was full. Slytherins and Gryffindors unwillingly chatted about the weather and how they ended up in anatomy, your basic feud secretly intact.
Oh.
She mumbled something else about something, but I missed it. As I began to ask her what she had blathered under her breath about, Professor McGonagall walked in the door next to Snape. The old bat strutted up to the front of the classroom and flicked her wand at two piles of papers. They rose from the front desk and sorted themselves to each student's desk. I received one that read, "Getting to know the opposite girl's questions." Thinking I had gotten the wrong one since I'm clearly male, I started to raise my hand. Seems everyone in the entire class got the wrong one. Every student in the room was raising their hand. McGonagall called on Granger and she questioned with,
Professor, I do believe there is something amiss. I have gotten the boys' questions by mistake.
There has been no mistake, Miss Granger. You are to ask Mr. Zabini those questions, since you two decided to be partners for this project.
Zabini's head rose from reading the questions on his parchment.
Whoa now, I never decided to be her partner. I just didn't want to sit next to some third year that had no breasts.
A couple Slytherins snickered and those Gryffindors he had been referring to sunk low in their stools. I gave a smirk and couldn't help but laugh along. Then I realized.
Like hell I'm working with Jesperson.
Jesperson was reading the parchment next to me with a look of horror. She looked up at me with distaste.
I refuse to ask these questions to Malfoy.
The professors simply gave small smiles and McGonagall clapped her hands. They each walked up to the front of the classroom to introduce the lesson and class. What were the questions anyhow? 1. When did your partner start her menstrual cycle? 2. Does she plan to have sexual intercourse before marriage or after? 3. How many kids does she plan to have, if any? 4. Who is her ideal husband? 5. Are her menstruations uncomfortable? List all that apply. Dear Salazar, what have I gotten myself into? 1. When was his first wet dream? 2. When did his voice first begin to lower? 3. Does he plan to have sexual intercourse before marriage or after? 4. Does he masturbate? 5. Who is his ideal wife? The list continued until it reached question 55. Dear Merlin, I was so not asking Malfoy when his first wet dream was. That was just... ew. If he masturbates, seriously, I don't need to know that. If he touches down, there. He probably did that every day or something. That was not something I was curious about, not even with someone I liked. Glancing up at Malfoy, I saw him reading the list of questions needed to be asked to me. The look of disgust and horror began to intensify. Snatching the parchment from his grip, I read the first question.
Like bloody hell, I'm telling you that.
I shoved the parchment back at him right into his chest. Malfoy had grabbed the list of boys' questions from my half of the desk. Looking like he was going to blow, we were interrupted.
Miss Jesperson, Mr. Malfoy, do you have a question?
My eyes widened, realizing that I had yelled in the class. I gave a false cough, covering my mouth dramatically. Malfoy smacked my back as if to help me. The pressure of the smack shoved me into the desk. My stomach slammed into the edge. Damn, that hurt. Giving a pained smile, I said, S1, media, student giving a pained smile, student trying to reassure teacher. No, sir, just clearing my throat is all.
See, I'm just fine, Professor. Please continue.
McGonagall continued as if nothing happened. Welcome to anatomy and physiology, students. You're all aware by now that anatomy is the study of the body and physiology is how it works. Those of you who have so graciously, I swear she glared at me, volunteered to join this trial class session are the only students so far to have this class. The headmaster believes it will give Slytherin and Gryffindor boys and girls time to bond. Bonding is one word for it.
Snape took over from here. You seem to have already placed yourselves with someone of the opposite gender. Whoever is sitting next to you will be your partner for the analysis project. The name is somewhat explanatory. You are to analyze your partner on their sexual and personal lives. This includes asking, insert throat clearing here, personal questions.
I absolutely refuse to ask a guy how large his dick is, said a girl a row above me.
That is not a question on the immediate list, Miss Vane, Professor Snape quipped.
Holy butter and jelly, what did Hermione put me into? I raised my hand.
Am I allowed to take back my volunteering?
Snape smirked at me. Miss Jesperson, are you asking to leave?
Giving a nod, I begin to regret asking the question at all.
No. In fact, for doing so, I would like you to ask Mr. Malfoy the first 10 questions right now, the black-haired man stated.
So I can't do that.
But I knew I had to.
Stand up and come to the front of the classroom.
Malfoy grabbed me by the collar and dragged me up. His grey eyes were piercing through my cheeks and I was blushing bright red. We faced the front of the room and I started.
When was your first wet dream?
11 or 12, I suppose, Malfoy said, his face void of any emotion. Looking up at him, I pleaded with my eyes to make it stop. Glancing down at me, he gave me a smirk. No help there.
When did your voice begin to lower?
That wasn't an embarrassing question on either of our parts.
Around the same time. Do you plan to have cis sexual intercourse before marriage or after?
I was grinding my foot into the floor and fiddling with the edge of the parchment. Everyone was looking at me with sympathy, the girls at least. Hermione was looking shocked that McGonagall wasn't stopping this. The teachers were staring at us with a blank expression. This class was experimental. I feel pity for whoever takes it after us.
After.
My eyes widened from both his answer and what question comes next. He wanted to wait. So did I. What if I got pregnant or something before marriage? That would be horrible. But question 4, I almost couldn't get it out.
Don't you masturbate? I couldn't hear. Can you repeat the question for me? Do you masturbate? Malfoy? I ground out. Well, yeah, every week.
I flushed bright pink. Sighing, I went back to the questions. At least we were bonding. Hope you liked it. Like, comment, and subscribe.